Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Wilhelm Scream, and welcome back to another day in Destiny 2 for some more Destiny 2 news and the Final Shape / Echoes Act 2, as that starts today, Intel. And in today's video, I'm going to be running you through this week's Nightfall and GM Nightfall, which once again is the Fallen Saber Strike. Very old school strike, one of my favorites personally. Anything really in the EDZ or in the Cosmodrome are really my favorites, just because they're so quick. Very easy to do, pretty well known as far as the general populace playing the game, so you probably won't have too difficult a time finding a pickup group if you're trying to do this on the higher level difficulties. And if you're trying to do this solo at any difficulty, including the GM, I have plenty of tricks, glitches, cheeses that you're going to want to know in order to progress through this as fast as possible. If you can complete this Nightfall this week, you will earn yourself the Slammer Sword. And of course, if you can get this done at the GM difficulty, you will earn yourself the Adept version, which can roll with some really great stuff. I've actually used this sword quite a bit, replaced my Falling Guillotine. I found it worked really well in the raid, at least at first, before we figured out different strats. But also, just in general gameplay, I've found myself using it more often than I really used swords previously. Another great thing about this week, because we do have the release of Act 2 of Echoes, we will be getting a whole bunch of new artifact mods, including one for barrier champions that you can equip to sniper rifles. So things like Still Hunt are going to be absolute god tier in this week's Nightfall. If things haven't changed, as the gameplay you're seeing is from a previous season, you will be facing off against Overload and Barrier champions. You might get lucky and there might be a slightly different combination. It might be Barrier and Unstop, which would make it a lot easier for solo players and groups. But the first thing we're going to cover today is the glitch for the Warsat. Now, I've talked about this many times in the past. It's one of the most usable, maybe one of the most well-known and efficient glitches in Destiny 2, and it has been around for quite some time, as the Warsat section of this strike is really the one that I think will give the most headache to the solo player or a group, as you're very out in the open. There's going to be a lot of champions, and the landing ships actually make it very difficult, as the damage that they put out, it's very hard to hide from, and it does a lot of damage, just to put it plainly. Very much a tendency to get overrun in this area, but with the glitch that you see in front of you, which just revolves around you going to this one specific side of the Warsat, where you see this little, call it hangover, on the Warsat. If you crouch and back up to this spot and then activate any emote where your character is sitting down. So the pop the chair emote was probably the most ubiquitous emote to use, as it's one that most people have, but even things like this couch emote or the play the video games emote, the Don the Throne emote also can work, though you might have to be in a slightly better spot. You can actually glitch inside the geometry of the Warsat. You can stay in the Warsat zone. It doesn't matter if there's enemies in there with you. So long as one player is in the actual circle, the Warsat will count down. I've seen people do this also on the other side of that little overhang that's on the left side or the back side of the Warsat as it crashes. However, I always like to go to that side. Remember to crouch and back up before activating the emote. The one where you saw me on the couch, occasionally you will get hit that way as your character sort of leans forward slightly. But overall, you should be all right. I would still recommend the pop the chair emote if you have it, as it puts you as far back into the geometry as possible. And you won't get any aggro there, as the enemies won't know that you're actually in the circle. If you have an emote where you lean forward slightly, they can see you, but only for a second. This will let the timer go down. The champions will not despawn, so if you're going for a platinum score, they'll still be there, so you can still take them out after you've actually completed the Warsat section. Now for the next area, this also can be a little bit of a tricky spot because you're very bottlenecked in this area. There's a couple of things you can do. One strategy that I see a lot of people using is going to the left side of this room where there's a little bit of a hallway and taking out the enemies in there. It works, though I wouldn't recommend it if you're a novice, as there are better places to go. Another thing that I've seen people use is simply by putting a sparrow in the doorway as you enter. That will keep the door from closing. So long as the sparrow doesn't get destroyed, which it shouldn't, you should be able to stay on the outside of this room and just shoot down the actual doorway. That works pretty well as well, but you will be, of course, very bottlenecked, as anything that's not in the purview of the doorway you will not be able to hit, and there are some very aggressive snipers in this room. Also, the champions can and will charge into the hallway. They won't go outside of the hallway, but they will charge into the hallway. So it is a good way to take out maybe the first champion. There's a lot of champions in here, a lot of overload champions, but the method that I've found works the best is simply to stay by this stairway on the right side of the room as you enter. You can actually use the same emote glitch to glitch underneath the stairs if you're a solo player or the last player of your fire team alive. This will de-aggro any of the enemies in this vicinity. But in general, if you just have some healing, and of course with Prismatic now, which we didn't have during this gameplay, I'm sure this whole thing will be quite a bit easier, but you can hold out in this corner as nothing on the opposite side of the room that is spawning will be able to hit you. You can shoot over the stairs to take out those enemies on that side, and the champions that will charge you will always be on the left, and you can sort of take them out one-on-one. The actual tricky spot is really going to be avoiding the invisible enemies that will come charging in. So that's going to be the point where you're going to want to lay down some healing in this area and just sort of wait for them and keep an eye out. Maybe have one player keep an eye out for the invisible vandals that will charge you in. It can be hard to see. They'll come over to the corner. The champions actually probably won't be as big a problem as them, just because they can kind of catch you off guard. And like I said, if you are the last player, you can always emote glitch under the stairs to de-aggro so that you can get the revives. The next area, which I think will give people a little bit of trouble, will be the electric fence area. It's great if you're a hunter with invis, as you can just glide past all the explosive shanks. None of them will give you much attention. However, if you do not have invis, something that I think people don't know that they can do is once you grab the battery in order to traverse back down to where you have to plant it, this is of course once you've gotten the battery, you can actually jump and melee, and that will allow you to move faster than you would if you were even just running, as the battery does slow you down a little bit if you're just trying to run. But if you jump and melee, you'll actually move faster than you would even if you were at full sprint. So that's a way of making it from the part of the room where you pick up the battery all the way down, as if you jump and melee, you will actually be able to stay ahead of any one particular electric fence. Then maybe if you're on a team, have some healing down at the other end, or get ready to take out those explosive shanks, as they can be an issue and are probably the thing that you'll die to the quickest. And once we get into the boss room, there is one strategy that I found works best and continues to work, and that is to stay on the right side of the room as you enter, on the opposite side of where the electric fences are, as you can see here. Do 2 damage phases here, and then if you need to, switch to the opposite side of the room in the same area on the opposite side of the electric fences. The electric fences, so long as you stay against the wall, there is a little bit of a nook on this side, as you can see, will not touch you. The ground that permeates up, these barriers or columns will protect you from a lot of the add damage and will bottleneck them quite a bit. The boss also won't come too far over into this corner, at least for the first phase of damage. The second phase of damage, he will come to this spot, so be prepared, but you will normally have taken out all the adds at that point. So you can throw up a barrier and just stay in the corner to phase out the boss for this damage phase. The second phase of damage is going to be sort of the make it or break it moment, as that is when the boss will come over to this spot. Then after the second phase, you can either stay here. I've actually found that rotating to the opposite side, just because you have a little bit more cover, the geometry changes, the floor comes up again, so you'll have a few more places that you can hide out. But you can also, if you feel more comfortable on this side, just stay over on this little nook in order to take out the boss. But this is the best place, as you can get a vantage point. Most of the room will be available to you. You can even shoot through the right corner, as you can see me doing here. I think stasis, even if you're running prismatic, a stasis grenade will do well, as it slows everything that will be coming up to this spot, including the boss and all the adds. You can take your time a little bit more just to take them out. But I'd be curious to see what people run with now that prismatic is a thing. I'm sure everybody will be running prismatic, and it'll make this whole thing go quite a bit faster. But hopefully, with all these tips and tricks, you'll be able to get through this at the GM difficulty and earn yourself an adept version of the Slammer. Let me know in the comments section down below what subclass you actually find yourself running. I'm sure everybody's going to say prismatic, but maybe a little bit more specific as far as the build is concerned. Want to give a big shout out to DJ and Sinister for helping me with this gameplay and continuing to help me with all future gameplays. They're going to be live streaming, I'm sure, at some point today. I'll have their live streams linked in the pinned comment and the description. So go check that out if you want to see any of us play live. I'll probably be with them. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on the bell to post notifications so you never miss out on any future Destiny 2 The Final Shape Echoes Act 2 content like this. Remember, you can also follow me on Instagram or Twitter. They'll be linked in the description box down below. If you've watched to this point, you can also leave a hashtag The Final Shape or a hashtag Echoes or a hashtag Echoes Act 2 in the comment section, or a hashtag DJ or Sinister for another entry into the next giveaway for this video. Remember, we do one every 1,000 subscribers, so you never want to miss out. When and if we reach 100, we'll be giving away an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation or a PC if you play on there. And once more, I am Wilhelm Scream. Good luck this week with your GM. Enjoy Echoes Act 2. And of course, we will see you next time. Little.